I don't really talk about this a lot, but when I made this decision, I also shut down some other opportunities, other revenue streams that could have been huge for me. I walked away from some revenue that was attractive, but I did it because I wanted to free up attention for something I believe could be working for us. Hey, welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and today is a solo episode where I'm going to be diving into a topic that actually could be the single most important factor in your success. And I don't say that lightly. I decided to record this episode because these are things that I've been thinking about lately as an entrepreneur, and I think you're going to see it as the single most important factor in your success because I believe it is in mine and everyone else that I've interviewed on this show, now approaching nearly 300 people. And what is that thing that's the single most important factor? Attention. Attention. I mean, think about it. Have you ever stopped to really think about what's more valuable, time or money? Most people would pick that one of the two of those things is the most important without hesitation. But here's the twist. Neither of them takes this top spot. I mean, the truth is attention is the most precious resource that you have. Now, I know a lot of people talk about time management. A lot of people talk about money management. A lot of people talk about energy management. And I'm not talking about energy in a building. I'm talking about your own personal energy management. But what if I told you that attention is actually your most precious resource, more valuable than time, more valuable than money? Because, here's what I want to say. Because without control of your attention, you're just spinning your wheels. And I learned this the hard way as an entrepreneur. I've started, I think, 14 companies. I've exited 4 or 5, and some successfully, some unsuccessfully. I still have 5 entities that I own, 2 of which are operating on a regular basis, and the other 3 are kind of running in the background. But I learned this idea of attention the hard way. I walk every morning. Most mornings, I try to go walk 3 to 5 miles as part of my exercise routine and paying attention to my energy. And I was listening to a podcast or a book or a video on YouTube. I forget what it was, but the person was talking about attention, and I never really thought about it. But here's the thing. If you're an entrepreneur, I bet at some point you felt the same way, that you didn't have your attention focused and you missed opportunities. You were overloaded, you were stretched too thin, you were constantly busy, but you're never really getting anywhere. So it's not a time problem. It's an attention problem. I mean, look, in a world that's engineered to steal your focus at every turn, mastering your attention isn't just nice to have. It's the difference between mediocrity and extraordinary success. Between being the entrepreneur who's always hustling but never breaking through, versus the one who seems to effortlessly, wow, why is that a hard word to say? It's ironic, isn't it? Effortlessly, I can't even say it, easily build 7- and 8-figure businesses. I mean, I feel like Porky the Pig who stumbles over his words and then just comes up with a different one. But really think about it. What's the difference between an entrepreneur who breaks away from the grind and one who is stuck in it all the time? Well, the hard truth is that most entrepreneurs are letting their most valuable asset leak away minute by minute, day by day, and they don't even realize it until they've wasted years chasing distractions instead of focusing on something meaningful. So today in this solo episode and in this video, I'm going to unpack why attention is the ultimate resource, how you're leaking it every day without you even realizing it, and most importantly, how you can reclaim it and direct it toward the things that truly matter in your life. Now, I want to jump in here, but I want to take a second to say that if you're just listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, know there's a video version of this on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan, and there's a playlist called The Root of All Success. And I think this is episode number 284, I think. But there's 280 plus episodes where you can go and watch me interview people about success. And while we might not have called it out specifically, you're going to see that attention is the true currency. Now, we all know the saying that time is money. And I get it. Time is limited. And once it's gone, you don't get it back. But I want to flip that idea on its head for a second. What if attention is actually more valuable than time? Let me think about it. How many hours do you waste simply because your attention is scattered? You got plenty of time in the day, right? I mean, we all have the same time. But if you're constantly distracted, constantly pulled in different directions, constantly multitasking, you're not actually getting anything meaningful done. So the real question is, how much time do I have? Or is it? No, that's not the real question. The real question is not how much time do I have? The real question is, where is my attention going? And if your attention is all over the place, you can work 12-hour days and still feel stuck. If your attention is focused, on the other hand, man, you can work a few intentional hours and make massive progress that seems like it would have taken 6 weeks otherwise. That's why attention is the ultimate currency. And if you can control your attention, you can control your outcomes. And if you don't, well, someone else is going to control it for you. So let me put this in perspective. The average entrepreneur checks their phone 96 times per day. And that's once every 10 minutes. And each time it takes about 23 minutes to get back into deep focus. Now that math doesn't add up, does it? Well, that's why most entrepreneurs live in a perpetual state of shallow work. They never hit the depth required for breakthrough thinking. And it gets worse. Studies show that even having your phone in the same room, even if it's turned off, reduces your cognitive capacity by about 10%. I mean, that's like trying to build a business with one hand tied behind your back. So when I say that attention is your most precious resource, I'm not just talking about focus or concentration in the way that most people think. My take on this goes way deeper, which is why I wanted to do a whole video, a whole podcast on this topic. Attention isn't just focus, although that's part of it. Attention is the deliberate allocation of your mental, emotional, and physical energy toward what truly matters. I'm going to say that again. Attention isn't just focus. It is the deliberate allocation of your mental, emotional, and physical energy toward what truly matters. Attention is about making conscious choices where your time and energy go so that they align with the biggest opportunities and the biggest priorities in your life. It's not just about eliminating distractions either, although, again, that's part of it. What attention is, it's about recognizing that your attention is finite and treating it like capital that needs to be invested wisely. That's what you need to realize. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your competitors aren't beating you because they have more time or more money. They're beating you because they've mastered their attention while yours be hijacked. I mean, look at the entrepreneurs that you admire, the ones that are building category-defining companies. They're not superhuman, although we call them that. They don't have more hours in the day than you do. What they have is directed attention. And while they might have more money than you now, they didn't start out that way. But they've learned to say no to the noise and yes to the signal. I mean, think of attention like compound interest. Small investments consistently applied to the right things lead to an exponential return over time. But just like with money, if you're spending your attention on low return activities, you're never going to see that compounding effect. So let's talk about how you're losing attention every day. Let's talk about where your attention is going, because for most of us, if you're like me, we're all leaking attention all day long and we don't even realize it. I want to run through some of the biggest attention killers that we entrepreneurs deal with. First is digital distractions. I've already mentioned this a little bit. Social media, email notifications. I mean, our devices are built to steal our attention. Notifications.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dub also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dub for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dub. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
There's also something called overcommitment. And that's when you say yes to too many things and you spread yourself too thin. And then there's this thing called lack of prioritization, when we are working on things that don't actually move the needle. And then we get into reactive mode, which is constantly responding to fires instead of working on strategy proactively. And then there's this myth of multitasking. We all believe that it's a thing, but it's not. Trying to juggle too many things at once gets you nowhere fast. I mean, there have been plenty of studies that prove that multitasking is impossible. It's actually switching. Your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you're multitasking, really what you're doing is your brain is switching back and forth, which is why a lot of you feel very tired at the end of the day when you only did mental work. It's because you switched from task to task and it taxed your brain. And I'll be honest, I used to be the worst at this. I was busy all the time, but making very little progress. And I had to convince myself that I needed to change, because what I was doing is I had convinced myself that I needed to work harder. I needed to do more to take on more projects. And because of that, my attention was being split 100 different ways. But the truth of the matter is that attention is finite. You only get so much of it every day. And if you waste it on the wrong things, you don't get it back. So I want to get specific for a few minutes about what this looks like in real life. I want you to picture a typical day as an entrepreneur. And I assume that you are one because you're listening to this show. You start your morning with good intentions, but within an hour, you're answering emails, you're fielding random questions from your team, and you're putting out fires. And before you know it, it's lunchtime. And you've spent your entire morning, and for most people is the most productive time of the day, but you spent that entire morning on reactive tasks that don't actually move the needle. And that's what happens when your attention isn't guarded. It gets hijacked by whatever demands it in the moment. Now, I want you to contrast that with this. Imagine that you've intentionally planned your day. You dedicate the first 3 hours to a high leverage project like systemizing or a key process or strategizing with a major growth on a major growth initiative. Now you've turned off your notifications. You've communicated boundaries with your team. You've created a space for deep work, uninterrupted work. And by the time lunch rolls around, what's the difference? You've made real progress on something that matters, and you're energized instead of drained. That is the power of reclaiming your attention. It's the difference between spinning your wheels on busy work and making meaningful strides towards your goals. That's what attention can do. And this digital distraction, I mean, my phone is sitting over here on the desk to my right. And in the peripheral vision, I've seen my screen light up several times. I've been talking about this, and I'm having to guard against wanting to look at that. But it's annoying. But digital distraction isn't just annoying. It's strategic warfare against your focus. And if you think I'm exaggerating, well, think about this. The average social media platform employs thousands of engineers specifically tasked with making their platforms more addictive. I mean, they've turned hijacking your attention into science, and they're winning. They're winning. And meanwhile, you're trying to build a business on the scraps of attention that you have left. That's not what's going to work. And that's where we get what I call the good idea trap sits in. And as entrepreneurs, of course, we're idea people. We see opportunities everywhere, but that strength becomes a weakness when we try to pursue every good idea that crosses our path. I tell people all the time is that ideas are a dime a dozen. Ideas are worthless. It's what can you execute? I mean, you can go pull a homeless person who's panhandling on the side of the road and sit down and have lunch with them, give them a cup of coffee and say, tell me about your ideas, your dreams, your goals, your aspirations. They're going to have great ideas. The problem is they don't execute on them. And entrepreneurs, you're the same. You're just in a different place. You're panhandling differently. You're trying to get clients, not dollars and change. So let me be brutally honest. Most of what you're working on right now doesn't matter. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. But most entrepreneurs have that completely backward. They spend 80% of their attention on activities that generate only 20% of the results. And it's not just external distractions. Sometimes the worst attention thief is between your ears. Perfectionism, overthinking, analysis paralysis. And these internal distractions can be even more insidious than the external ones because they feel like real work. We convince ourselves, we lie to ourselves. And that's what I call the false urgency syndrome. When everything feels like a fire alarm fire. Your team, they need answers. Your clients have questions. Your vendors need decisions. And it all feels urgent. But here's the reality. Very few things are truly urgent. Most of the things that we feel urgent are actually just someone else's priorities masquerading as your own. Recently, I was sick. I was very, very sick for about 3 weeks. And for a full week, I was in bed. I had a lung infection, a sinus infection, and an ear infection. It was terrible. It's as sick as I've been in a long time. And for those 3 weeks, I was operating at maybe 50% capacity on average. That for a week, it was at zero. Like I couldn't do anything. I would come, I work, I have a studio here in my home, and I would come in, I'd sit down at my desk and I'd try to work, and I would just be exhausted and I'd have to go lay down in my bedroom. And here's what I noticed is that even when I unexpectedly had to take a vacation, even though it wasn't a vacation like we want or imagine, nothing changed. Now, did I not make progress on some projects? For sure. But nothing changed. As a matter of fact, when I came back and I was finally back to where, not 100%, but I could communicate with my clients again in my mastermind, I sent a message to everybody, say, hey guys, I've been sick for a week and apologize I haven't been around. And a couple of guys responded and said, I'm glad you're better, but we didn't even know you're gone. And they were being complimentary because they followed that up with a comment like this. I'm glad to see that, Jason, you are practicing what you teach us to do, to set businesses up where they run without you as the owner having to be there. And that's, in fact, what I figured out. But I'm not telling that story to do anything other than to illustrate the fact that most of what we're working on isn't really that important. Because had I not been sick and I'd been sitting at this desk, I would have been pushing some projects forward. But most of what I'd been working on wasn't that important. So it really made me think. How do I take back control? So let me tell you another personal story, one that really completely changed how I think about attention. And this is really the beginning, the genesis of this new revelation I had about attention. It was the summer of 2024. We had just gotten back from Mexico. I had hosted a retreat for my mastermind, the Exeter Club in Mexico. And I was dealing with a lot of scarcity mentality. The Exeter Club was not doing great in terms of number of people in the club. We had kind of stagnated. And I was running multiple businesses. I was managing a very full calendar. I was constantly working, but I really wasn't getting the kind of momentum that I wanted. And I knew that the Exeter Club Mastermind had the potential to grow into something truly life-changing for entrepreneurs. But I wasn't giving it my full attention. I was juggling too many things, trying to do too much. And as a result, I really wasn't seeing the kind of explosive growth that I knew was possible. And at the same time, I was deep into acquiring another business right here in the Nashville area. I'd already signed a letter of intent with the seller. I'd already met with the seller. I had discussed financing. Everything was moving forward. It was happening. But when I got back from that retreat and I started analyzing things, and side note, I also had another good friend of mine who had a business opportunity that I could start, that's something that I really want to do. And he delivered it up on a silver platter, said, hey, here it is. We can get started. It's going to make a lot of money. Here's what we can do. We weren't going to partner. It was going to be my thing. He was just giving me the opportunity to get in this industry. And I really wanted to do it, but man, something wasn't setting right. So I had this gut check moment where I realized that if I kept chasing too many opportunities, I'll never go all in on the one thing that matters the most. There's an old, I think it's a Russian proverb that says, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. So I made a decision. I did two things. I told the seller of the business I was looking to buy. We'd already been back and forth with a couple of offers, and an offer had been presented from me to him for a certain price on certain terms in the early to middle of July. We had gotten back from the retreat in early June, I believe, or late June. And so I made a decision. I said, I sent him an email and I said, my offer stands as is, no negotiations. And if I don't hear back from you by July 31st, I'm out. The deal, I will walk away. And guess what? July 31st came and went, and I didn't hear back from him. Now, he emailed me a few weeks later, but it was way too late. But this was my sign. And this was the moment that I just doubled down 100% on the Exeter Club. And I'm going to tell you what happened in just a second. But remember that other friend that I had that offered me that opportunity? He was pursuing me because it would have benefited him too. He would have been involved, although not a partner. And he's like, hey, Jason, are we ready to go? Are you ready to do this? And I had to be honest with him because I already wasted some of his time investigating this over the last month or so. And I had to write him back, and I just said, look, man, here's the thing. I've made a decision. I've walked away from this acquisition deal that I was going to do, and I'm not going to pursue this opportunity with you right now. I do want to do it, and I will do it, but I am not going to do it until X happens. And I explained to him what X was, and it was a financial thing that I needed to see happen within the Exeter Club, and we're working towards that really rapidly. And you know what he said? He said, man, I appreciate that. He goes, it's rare to find an entrepreneur as focused as you. Well, what he didn't know is that I was sitting in the place I was sitting because I hadn't been focused. And it's, again, not just focus in the traditional sense, but I'm talking true attention, double down. So I made a decision, and I completely doubled down on the Exeter Club, 100% doubled down on the Exeter Club. And here's what happened. Within just a few months, membership nearly tripled. For the year, it tripled for sure. So the biggest change, well, I took back control of my attention and everything else followed. But let me take you deeper into what was really happening. This wasn't just about one business acquisition or this other opportunity. It was about a pattern that I had fallen into, a pattern that I see in almost every entrepreneur that I mentor, that I work with in the Exeter Club. For years, I had taught my clients the FOCUS acronym, which stands for Follow One Course Until Successful. I thought it was ingenious. And I taught it to all my clients for years, and I saw it transform their businesses, but I wasn't following my own advice. I mean, how dumb is that? I was suffering from what I now call opportunity addiction. This constant chase for the next big thing, always one more deal, always one more partnership, always one more acquisition, always one more project away from the breakthrough. I mean, it's an entrepreneur's version of a gambling addiction. And just like gambling, the house always wins. Now, here's what was really going on. I was afraid of going all in, because going all in means eliminating your escape routes. It means burning the boats, and that's terrifying. I mean, it's far more comfortable to have fingers in multiple pies, because if one fails, you got backups, right? But that's precisely the mindset that keeps most entrepreneurs stuck in mediocrity, because greatness doesn't come from hedging your bets. It comes from total unwavering commitment. So the day that I walked away from that acquisition wasn't just about saying no to one opportunity. It was about saying yes to focus. It was about acknowledging that my attention, not my money, not my time, not my network, was the limiting factor in my growth. And so I started asking myself, what can I eliminate or delegate so that I can focus on what truly matters? Now, I'm not proud to admit that it took me this long to follow my own advice, but once I did, the results were undeniable. And let me share something with you. I don't really talk about this a lot, but when I made this decision, I also shut down some other opportunities, other revenue streams that could have been huge for me. I walked away from some revenue that was attractive, but I did it because I wanted to free up attention for something I believe could be worth millions. And, the people close to me, probably thought I was crazy. Friends thought I was, questioned my judgment a little bit. But here's the thing. I knew something they didn't, that divided attention leads to divided results. So within a few months, as I said, of making that decision, the Exeter Club membership didn't just triple overall, but value of clients and what we were doing, value to clients and what we were doing in the club increased tremendously. We started putting together processes and value add into the club that has made the club sticky, so to speak, right? I mean, it's something that people don't want to leave. Our retention jumped. All of this because I stopped dividing my attention and started directing it with laser focus. Now, before we continue, I want to take just a second to talk about something that's just as important as controlling your attention, and that's controlling your finances. And that's why I partner with Relay as my banking partner. And you've probably heard me, they've been a sponsor of the podcast for quite some time. You've probably heard me talk about them. But if you're still using a traditional bank account, that makes it hard to track cash flow, set up multiple accounts, or automate payments, you're making your life harder than it needs to be. Relay, I'm glad to say, is built specifically for entrepreneurs. It lets you create multiple accounts, assign budgets, automate payments, and you can actually see where your money is going in real time. If you've ever read the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, you'll know that he teaches that you should have these separate accounts so that you move your money profit first and owner comp and all that stuff in the right places. Relay is designed to do that for you. It can automate that. So every time you get income, you can tell the bank to say, well, take income and put 1% in profit, 1% OPEX, 1% owner comp, 1% tax, whatever. So if you want to take back control of your finances the same way that you're taking control of your attention, Relay is the way to do it. I personally use Relay to segregate my funds for specific business purposes, which helps me maintain mental clarity and financial focus, so I'm not distracted and wondering how much money I've got. And so just like attention management, proper financial management and segmentation of your finances prevents leakage. It ensures resources flow to your highest priorities, and it's all connected. And I could tell you that cash has started to stack in my accounts in ways that it didn't before because I have it segmented. I have it put in the right spot. So for instance, right now, taxes are firmly set aside for taxes. Profits firmly set aside for profit. And I do events a few times a year, 3 times a year for my mastermind. And I take a percentage of income and put it aside for events. So you want to check that out. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay. And I promise it'll change the way you manage your business banking. therealjasonduncan.com/relay. All right. So let's get back into some practical strategies on how to reclaim your attention. How do you fix this? How do you take back control of your attention so that it works for you instead of against you? Well, I'm going to do 5 practical steps that you can start using today. Here's the first one. Do an attention audit. I want you to track where your attention is going for 1 full week. I want you to identify those distractions and eliminate them. Now, this is going to take work, but this is what separates the successful from the grinder, because the grinder ain't going to be successful, but you are. The second is time blocking. I teach the thing called the 10-block weekly scheduling method. If you're interested in that, you can send me a DM. I could give you that resource for free. I'd be happy to do that. But time blocking is where you schedule focused work periods with 0 distractions. The third thing I want to tell you to do is say no more often. You need to ruthlessly cut out commitments that don't align with your highest priorities. That's like me saying no to my friend in that business opportunity I talked about earlier. That's not my highest priority. Is it going to make me a lot of money? Yeah. Is it going to be great? Yeah. Is it going to take work? Yeah. Would it steal focus and attention from what I'm trying to build now? Yeah. So I said no, at least not yet. The fourth thing is I want you to do something called single tasking. Stop trying to do everything at once. Focus on one thing at a time. Single task. I want you to be a master single tasker. And then the fifth thing is the law of addition by subtraction. Have you heard of this? The law of addition by subtraction. It states that you actually get more done by taking things away than by adding things. Instead of adding more, figure out what you can subtract to get better results. So let me break those down into detail, because I want you to actually implement this, not just nod along and forget about this when the podcast is over or when you finish watching this YouTube video. So the attention audit, that first thing, isn't just about tracking your time. It's about tracking where your focus goes. For 1 week, I want you to use a notes app or a paper journal. I want you to document every time you switch tasks, every time you check your phone, every time you feel your mind wandering, and be brutally honest. Most entrepreneurs are shocked when they see how fragmented their attention really is. And what you're looking for are patterns. Do you check your Instagram every time you feel stuck on a difficult problem? Do you jump into email whenever you need to work on that business plan that you should have been working on, but you've been avoiding? And these patterns are your attention leaks, and they're costing you everything. Now, for time blocking, I'm not just talking about coloring your calendar. I'm talking about creating sacred, immovable blocks for your most important work. For me, I do the 10-block weekly schedule, and I have blocks of time that I will only allow certain activities to handle during those blocks. And I have 1 full day a month that I do nothing but deep work. And during those days, those hours, those blocks, nothing can interrupt my focus. No phone, no email, no team access, just pure, undistracted work on my highest leverage activities. But here's what most people miss. Time blocking only works if there are serious consequences for breaking it. You got to create a system of accountability. Tell your team, tell your family. Better yet, make a public commitment. And that public commitment could be your accountability mechanism. Now, when I talk about saying no more often, that might be the most powerful but least practiced skill among entrepreneurs. We're wired to say yes to opportunities, to requests for our time, to new ideas. But every yes that you give is a no to something else. You know that, right? Every time you commit to a new project, you're implicitly taking away time from an existing priority. Now, I heard somebody tell this, and it's probably a book, and I don't remember who it is, but I've developed what I call the hell yes or no filter. If a new opportunity doesn't immediately make me think, hell yes, it's automatically a no. This isn't about being closed to an opportunity. It's about being fiercely protective of my attention. Now, let's talk about single tasking. Single tasking, we need to address this myth of multitasking head on. I've already talked about it a little bit, but your brain literally cannot multitask. What you're really doing is task switching, and each switch costs you precious mental resources. Studies show that multitasking can reduce your productivity by 40%. So for those of you listening to this that say you're an expert multitasker, bull hockey, fill in the blank. So here's my challenge. Pick one important task each day to do it to completion without switching to anything else. No checking email, just for a minute. No quick social media breaks. Just sustain, uninterrupted focus. Now, that's harder than it sounds, but it's the closest thing to an entrepreneurial superpower that I found. Now, lastly, the law of addition by subtraction. Let's break this down. This is about understanding that the path to more impact often requires doing less, not more. Most entrepreneurs operate from a scarcity mindset when it comes to opportunity. They think that more projects, more clients, more products means more success. But the law of addition by subtraction teaches that doing less, but focusing more strategically can yield far greater results. I mean, think about this. Imagine you're juggling 10 low priority tasks every day, answering repetitive emails, micromanaging small decisions, fixing problems that others can handle. Each of those tasks chips away at your attention, leaving very little energy for what truly matters. Now, I want you to imagine if you subtracted half of those tasks, if you delegate, automate, or eliminate them, which is what I teach in the Exeter Club. So instead of spreading your attention thin, you focus on just 5 high-value actions. What's the result? Well, you stop spinning your wheels on things that don't matter, and you start seeing real progress because your attention is exactly where it needs to be. So here's a practical exercise. List everything you're working on right now, every project, every client, every initiative. Go put it on a whiteboard. I got one over here in my studio. Then apply the 80-20 rule. Which 20% of those activities generate 80% of your results? Now, what would happen if you eliminated half of those low-value activities and redirected your attention towards high-value ones? The results can be stunning. I mean, I've seen entrepreneurs double and triple their revenue while cutting their workload in half through this process alone. So attention, of course, can be a hot topic, and that's what we're talking about today. And it has been a hot topic in recent years, but I'm certainly not the first person to talk about it. But I do think that my perspective as an entrepreneur brings something unique to the table. There's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. He talks about how deep, undistracted focus is the key to creating extraordinary results in a distracted world. He shows how shallow work, like endless emails or multitasking, prevents us from doing the meaningful work that truly moves the needle. And Nir Eyal, I think that's how you say his name, probably saying that wrong, in his book, Indistractable, he dives into how modern technology hijacks our attention. He explains how distractions from notifications and social media, how these distractions keep us from living intentionally, and he offers focus strategies for how to take control of your focus. And while their work is inspiring and it does highlight the importance of focus, I believe that my take is a little bit different. And the key differences are as follows. For Newport and Eyal, attention is about maximizing productivity or reclaiming control in a distracted world. And they're both very important points. But I believe, as I've been saying in this show today, I believe that attention is bigger than productivity. It's about creating the kind of freedom that we crave as entrepreneurs. It's about working deeply, but not just working deeply or just avoiding distractions. What it is, it's about taking back control of your attention, directing it toward the things that truly matter, like building systems, empowering your team, and creating a business that works for you instead of the other way around. Now, I want to take things a step further and talk about what I call the advanced attention economy, because once you master the basics, there's a whole new level to explore. So let's talk about attention leverage. The most successful attention leverage, that's what we're talking about. The most successful entrepreneurs that I know don't just manage their attention, they leverage it through systems and people. They build what I call attention amplifiers, processes, team structures, technologies that extend the impact of their focused attention. For example, instead of personally responding to every client email, they create comprehensive SOPs that allow their team to handle 90% of the communications without their involvement. And they're not just protecting their attention, they're multiplying its impact. And that leads to the next thing. That's strategic deep work. This isn't just about focusing. It's about focusing on the right things at the right time. Strategic deep work. There's a massive difference between being busy with focused work and being strategic with focused work. Now, here's a framework I use. You could divide all your activities into 4 categories. There's creation, connection, optimization, and elimination. Let's say that again. Creation, connection, optimization, elimination. So what's creation? Well, that's developing new products, new services, new content. That's what I'm doing right now. There's connection. There's building relationships with clients, partners, and team members. And I do that frequently as well. And then there's optimization. This is when you improve existing systems or offerings. And that usually happens with your team. And then there's elimination. There's when you identify and remove inefficiencies. So the key insight here is that your attention has different qualities at different times of the day. Most entrepreneurs are creative in the morning, more analytical in the afternoon, or more reflective in the evening. Whatever it is for you, you need to align your deep work with your natural attention rhythms, and you'll get exponentially better results. Now, I want to talk about attention recovery too. This is actually the missing piece for most high-performing entrepreneurs. They become really good at directing their attention, but they're terrible at resting it. Your attention is like a muscle. It needs recovery. It needs a recovery period to perform at its peak. I've implemented what I call attention resets throughout my day. So every 45 to 90 minutes, I try to take a complete break from cognitive work. No phone, no computer, no business, no thinking, no nothing. Just 10 to 15 minutes walking outside, praying, meditation, physical movement. It isn't lost productivity. It's actually an investment in sustained attention quality. And the entrepreneurs who burn out aren't the ones who work in the hardest. They're the ones who never let their attention properly recover. You see, most entrepreneurs think working 50, 60 hours a week is a badge of honor, and they assume that more time equals more input. But here's the truth. It's not about the hours you work. It's the attention that you invest. Attention turns time into results. You write that down. Attention turns time into results. When your attention is scattered, even 60 hours can feel wasted, spent putting out fires, reacting to distractions, doing busy work. But when your attention is locked on high-value actions, you could achieve 3 to 4 hours what others struggle to do in a week. So let's wrap this up. Here's the bottom line. First, attention is your most valuable resource. Don't forget that. It's more important than time. It's more important than money. And if you don't control it, someone else will. Second here is the fastest way to make progress is to focus less, but do it better. So here's your challenge. I want to challenge you to take control of your attention this week. Start small, audit where it's going, cut distractions, focus on what really moves the needle. And I promise you, you're going to see the difference almost immediately. And you're going to remember this. In this age of infinite distraction, focused attention is your unfair advantage. While your competitors are fragmenting their focus across a dozen priorities and they're grinding it out, you can channel your attention into the few things that truly matter. So remember what we talked about. Audit your attention. Apply the law of addition by subtraction. Set boundaries to protect your focus. And then focus. Follow one course until successful. I mean, think about the most successful business leaders of our time. What sets them apart isn't IQ or work ethic or luck. It's their ability to direct their attention with laser precision toward their highest leverage activities year after year. I mean, look, Elon Musk doesn't build multiple companies by dividing his attention. He does it by applying intense sequential focus to each priority in its time. The same with Jeff Bezos, the same with Sarah Blakely, and every other extraordinary entrepreneur who's built something extraordinary. The greatest lie in entrepreneurship is that success comes from doing more. The truth is that success comes from doing less, but with complete focus and commitment. So let me leave you with this. Your attention isn't just something you manage. It's the primary tool through which you create your future. It's the lens through which you see opportunities. It's the energy with which you solve problems and the force with which you drive change. Attention shapes the quality of your time, your business, and your freedom. And when you focus your attention properly, you'll reclaim time. You'll reduce stress, and you'll start building a life and a business that truly serves you. Guard it fiercely, invest it wisely, and watch as it transforms not just your business, but your entire life. So that's it for today's episode. And if you found this helpful, do me a favor, share this podcast with another entrepreneur who needs it. Leave a like, leave a review, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, I am the real Jason Duncan. And as always, Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.